they want to. Talk don't bother me. I want the whole wide world to know that I love you so. Let them whisper, for they know not what's.
And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo.
And I'm Miss Joan Marie Musi.
And our guest, John Penley, a.k.a. Gringo Loco, a man known for more than his tats, although he's got some interesting ones. We'll take a look at them later. And then the history.
Welcome to the show, John.
Yeah,
Thank
welcome.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And John's a longtime resident of the Lower East Side of the East Village, and behind us, you can see on the screen is Tompkins Square Park, an aerial photograph of Tompkins Square
A beautiful park.
Yeah, our park.
Downtown Manhattan.
We invite you all to come visit. And we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about the neighborhood, about the park. We're going to also talk about some ancillary issues having to do with our friends, people like Brad Will, and about the mayoral campaign that's coming up. And we're going to get a call in a few minutes from one of the organizers, Chris Flash, of some of these concerts that are being planned for this summer in Tompkins Square Park, and commemorating various events and just for having fun. And we're going to talk about those concerts and the problems that folks have been having. And we know there's a lot of problems have been occurring.
Like what kind of problems?
And, yeah, John, what are some of those problems?
The main problem is that for some reason the Parks Department has decided that they're going to retroactively charge people for other concerts they've done in the past for supposedly Parks Department overtime fees. And as far as I know, people were never informed about these fees up until they got told that their permits had been canceled for this year for the fact that the Parks
They have
Department...
an overdue account with the Parks Department.
Yeah, the Parks Department's claiming people owe this all this money.
And did this involve the cleanups of the prior concerts?
No, because people cleaned it up themselves. It's just, I believe, an attempt by the city to limit the amount of activity in city parks and to cut down on the amount of money the city spends for First Amendment issues.
So you don't think there's a legitimate basis for these cancellations?
Well, I think that they should have told these people about these fees before they already did the concerts, instead of waiting until the next year when they wanted to do new concerts and then say, oh, you have to pay us all this money before you can do any more concerts.
Oh, you mean they should have wrapped it up at the end of the permit the last time?
Or they should have actually informed the people beforehand. I mean, this is something just that came out of the blue. And, for example, I heard that they're telling the people of Howell who wanted to come back and do it again this year, they got to pay $10,000 to the Parks Department or they can't get a permit.
And what was that charged for?
Well, the same thing, the Parks Department overtime.
Tell folks what Howell is.
Well, Howell was a festival put together by Phil Hartman, the guy that owns the Two Boots restaurant chain, in order to celebrate the life of Allen Ginsberg. And, you know, they had Lady Bunny doing Wigstock and various jazz concerts, you know, stuff like that.
And that lasted for about 2 summers, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then there was a big controversy. Then they stopped it, and they were trying to revive it again this year. But as of now, I don't know the status of that either.
Now,
And
John,
what concert are you talking about before that, then? What?
The concerts
Is it
that
an annual
they
event,
did
or-
last year, all the different concerts that our friends put together last year, they're now saying that they owe money for.
But I'm
Parks
asking
Department.
about what those concerts are. Are they like an annual event in the
Yeah.
park, or?
Yeah, they've been doing 5 or 6 concerts every summer at various times in Tompkins Square Park, and they've never had this fee thing come up before. Now all of a sudden, they wait until a week before the first concert scheduled to go on, and then they go, you got to come up with X amount of dollars or you don't have a concert this
And what
year.
is this event called? Like, if people were looking forward to it, what would have been called?
Well, it was a folk music concert this year, this time, but there are other concerts planned, and they're trying to figure out what to do about that.
You mean with different styles of music?
With different styles of music. And this concert was featuring people like Roger Manning and David Peel, and when Chris Flash calls in, you can get his whole lineup. But we decided that already that we were going to do a protest about the yuppie scum that's been taking over our neighborhood and related issues. We had already planned this, so on Saturday, 6 p.m. at the corner of 7th and A, there was already planned a protest, but since the concert is not going on, which we were going to do the protest afterwards, we've invited all the musicians who are acoustic to come down and play at the protest.
Oh, I see.
We're going to be blocking the sidewalks on...
Will this be like a traditional speak out?
It'll be the a revival of the old traditional Tompkins Square Park soapbox speak out, but with loud music. And, I happened to run into the community affairs officer, Hernandez, at Tompkins Square the other day where they were busting a bunch of crusty punk rockers, and I said, you'd better put us up a pin there because we're going to, create quite the commotion this weekend.
Oh, there's like a pin on their map of...
no, I'm talking about the
no,
police
he's talking
pin.
about a
because,
cage.
I figured best to let them know than spring it on them, because once they saw this massive gathering at the 7th and A, they would be more likely to just come in and start arresting people. So
Now, I've heard a rumor that there's been an upswing in arrests in Tompkins Square Park. Is that a
that's correct.
true rumor? Or?
That's correct. It's the annual Krusty Crackdown. Like every year, Krusties come in from all over the country. In
What's
the
a
parks.
Krusty? I mean, not everybody understands.
It's a basically young kids that got no money that live on the street and never wash their clothes.
So they get sort of crusty.
They get crusty.
Right.
And every year they kind of come into Tompkins Square Park, and when they reach a certain level of amount of crusties, the police decide they got to do something to get rid of them, so they start arresting them for anything and everything they can possibly
So it's a
think
sort of
of.
summer thing that happens regularly.
It happens every summer, and they've made 20 to 30 arrests in the last few days over at the park.
What kind of things?
Uh,
you were there.
Disorderly conduct.
I'll give some background because John Penley, who's our guest here tonight, let them talk. You have a scanner. You're a reporter. You're a former photojournalist.
Yes.
And you've taken you're a great photographer. And you've done some amazing
Made
work.
the cover of every paper in the city at one time or the other.
You've done some great work, and some of you really have iconic photographs of the neighborhood and people in the neighborhood. So you have a scanner. That's what every good reporter, every good city photographer has their scanner, and they run out to events as they hear them with their camera to snap pictures. So you heard about what was going on. You came to the park.
Well, I didn't hear about this on the scanner because since I'm retired as a photojournalist, I do listen to it. But basically, I heard it by word of mouth, and I've been watching what's been going on. I've done the park. I've spent a lot of time there because I like green open space, and there isn't hardly any much spaces left, and the sidewalks are all clogged with drunk yuppies, and so I spent some time.
Frat scene or something.
That's terrible. So I've been observing it, and people have been arrested for drinking beer, sleeping on benches, having their backpacks on the benches, non-existent warrants. Now this is something kind of interesting. There's a new Lieutenant Corcoran who's never wears his uniform, who's not sure if he's a supervisor or an undercover. I mean, he's kind of confused as to what his role is. He's been leading the crackdown over there, and they've been busting people claiming they have outstanding warrants, but then by some magical change, after they get put through the system and get in front of a judge, they find out there aren't any warrants for them, so that they've been basically cooking up quite a number of these arrests from older neighborhood residents who they've busted, claiming there's warrants and when there don't exist. So that's part of what's been going on.
There has been drug use in the park. There has been a couple of ODs in the park, right?
Well, there always has been that.
Right. The reason I bring it up is that we had a show a few weeks back where we had a guest from the Harm Reduction Coalition who was showing us the Narcan,
the kit
that they have, and that we found out after our show. Really, we found out. As a matter of fact, Colin from the New York Times was in the park when a kid overdosed, and he survived. He lived because one of the other kids had one of these kits, the same kit we were discussing on the show a few weeks ago.
He was able to save his life.
Right, it injected him and was able to save his life, and. So I found that fascinating. Now, the Times is going to do a story about it, but I'm told that the Villager beat.
Well, that's because of me. I told the Villager before before Colin could work.
Yeah,
and I was actually quoted in the Villager as saying, when somebody's ODing and they inject Narcan into them, it's like a zombie movie. When the zombie comes back to life from the dead, they sit up and they're not looking happy. They're kind of angry about being brought back to life. But it's a miracle.
Immediately go into withdrawal.
It's a miracle. I mean, and I've seen it lots of times.
Yeah, we had a wonderful show about it. It was
Right.
really inspiring that people can be saved in such a simple
Right.
way.
And she said about 150, just since they started this program, about 150 or more people have been saved. Maybe half of them would have died.
And also, this is an innovative program. It started here in New York. I don't know if it's being done anywhere else, but the New York Needle Exchange was the first
In the Iranian
to
prison
start
system.
that, to do that.
In the Iranian prison system, they have a needle exchange program of sorts.
Yeah, but the Narcan program is a pioneer program by the New York Needle Exchange. But that's kind of one of the problems is a lot of these young kids will come and hit Tompkins Square Park. They're not used to doing dope, and then they'll do it, and they don't have a tolerance, and they tend to OD. Thankfully, it's better they OD in Tompkins Square than the East River because they tend to be alone and die down at the East River.
Well, according to witnesses, that after we had the show on and this OD happened in Tompkins Square Park, the police officer who arrived, actually shook the hand of the kid who saved the guy who overdosed and said, "Thanks, you made my job a lot easier."
Well, that may be true, but then they started the crackdown.
Right, then they started arresting
then they started arresting people.
Right.
So also see this lieutenant.
Has that chased them out? Oh, go ahead.
No, most of them have been in and out, but see, they keep going until they finally decide, well, hey, it's better just to move on to somewhere else. But see, this lieutenant is also the subject of a controversy when he led the 6th Street bicycle confiscation, where they cut the bicycles off the that were chained up on the fence posts and stuff like that, and took them away and destroyed a lot of them. And since he was in his customary plain clothes instead of uniform outfit, when people were videotaping it and tried to get his identification, he arrested both of the videotaper and the person arresting, asking for identification. So people have now contacted, I personally have contacted Rosie Mendez and asked her to contact the police department to clarify this guy's role in the neighborhood. I mean, he can't be a supervisor at the 9th Precinct who comes to work in jeans and T-shirt, or an undercover cop. He can't be both. He has to be one or the other. And part of the problem is when he's wearing his customary jeans, you can't identify him without asking him. And he tends to arrest people when you ask him if he's a police officer.
So when the people
I just
saw
want
him,
to remind folks that they can call in, that we're live. John Penley is our guest. I'm Paul DiRienzo. Miss Joan Marie Musi. You're listening to Let Them Talk, or watching Let Them Talk. We are here live in the studio, and our number is right there on the screen, 212-757-1538. If
so call us up.
you're from the neighborhood or not, even just within listening distance on the internet, just give us a call. We'll take your call. Any questions, we'd be happy to field them. So there you go. All right, John, you were saying.
Joni was asking.
Oh, Joni, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was asking about when he was taking the bicycles, did people think he was a thief because he didn't have a police uniform on? Is that what the concern was?
Because he was with a squad of cops who
Oh,
all
I
had their
see.
other uniforms
Oh,
on,
I
but
see.
he was a supervisor and he didn't have a uniform on. So people could identify the other cops because they have the name tag, but the supervisor wasn't in jeans and a T-shirt, and that's all he ever wears. So it's the strangest situation I've ever seen at the 9th, and I've seen strange situations at the 9th Precinct.
Well, of course, during the riot in '88, that was one of the big issues, that the policemen had covered their badges.
That's exactly right.
So there is a tradition in the Tompkins Square Park.
Of police
Precinct,
not
yeah.
wanting to be identified,
Right.
but somebody that is a supervisor assigned to the precinct should be wearing a uniform with an ID on it. And it looks extremely unprofessional, and it could cause other situations where people get arrested. I personally asked him the other day, knowing who he was. He doesn't know me at this point. He probably will soon. But I asked him if he was a police officer, and he denied it. And I go, oh, well, then why are you dragging all these people? I've seen you dragging and arresting all these people. Then he walked off and looked really angry. But so he didn't do anything to me because he probably wondered who I was. He didn't know who I was.
Well, do you feel that there's still repercussions from the riot in '88 in terms of the feelings between the people of the neighborhood and the police department? Do you think that there's still a strain there, or do you think that those issues were resolved over the more than a decade since that
20
happened.
years, almost 20 years.
Well, to be honest with you, there aren't all that many people left from the old days. I mean, the yuppie influx and the luxury condo market has driven so many people out of our scene. It doesn't feel like the old, we used to have a community, but it's not like that anymore. And it's just mobs of drunken, rich white yuppies on the sidewalks, blocking the sidewalks.
Well, do you feel that they have a better relationship with the police?
Oh, yeah, the cops don't treat them the way they treated us. Or, for example, the way they treat the Puerto Rican people down in Avenue D in the projects and stuff, Last year when they did the Puerto Rican parade, they blocked off the whole neighborhood, and they generally maybe cause streets to get clogged up once a year during the Puerto Rican parade. But the yuppies got the streets clogged up every Friday and Saturday night of the week. And unless neighbors go nuts and really put a lot of pressure on the police department to do something about it, nothing ever gets done. And basically, it's money. It's big bucks.
Well, there's
money.
been an enormous rise in just the population. Period. There's many more people than there were 20 years ago.
Buildings going
Many
up.
more people that have a lot of money.
And
before it wasn't like that.
Well, you could tell. I mean, the main change in the neighborhood has been that, it's safer.
Yeah, and all the yuppies that put businesses up down there saying, "Oh, we're big heroes because we cleaned up the neighborhood." I'm going, yeah, you cleaned it up for these rich white kids that can afford these yuppie condos down here, but the rest of us, we're going to be gone. They're pushing us out. And in fact, if you read the New York Post and the New York Sun recently, they both did editorials suggesting the city sell off the housing projects on Avenue D to private control and
for some riverfront property.
Exactly,
Now, do you feel this is happening all over New York City, or do you think it's restricted to the Lower East Side?
No, it's happening all over, and now it's spread out to Harlem. It's going on in Williamsburg,
Brooklyn, even.
I don't know what working class people are supposed to do. I mean, for example, Stuyvesant Town was middle-class working people, a lot of city employees, and now that that's in private hands, they're all in jeopardy. I think the whole plan is, and I hate to say it, but both the Giuliani and the Bloomberg administration have encouraged it, is to get the middle class to get out of the city, make it for the rich.
Especially
now, speaking of Bloomberg,
yeah.
Tell us
about your
making
work.
my entry into national presidential politics.
That's good to hear, John.
You're going to be a presidential pundit?
Well, not just me, but anybody that wants to, because I set up a website. It should be up and running within the next couple hours. I've been working on it for a few days. I registered .com names, Mayor Mike for President, and Bloomberg for President, and I like Mike for President .com, and it's going to be an open forum for people to weigh in on specific. We have various areas of issues like healthcare, housing, medical marijuana drug policy, the war in Iraq, gay marriage. Where if you want to talk about those issues, you can go to one area,
forums.
Chat room, different forums, or you can just post whatever you want to, and we're hoping that since we don't really know where Bloomberg stands on the majority of these issues, that we can kind of force some movement if he is, which it looks like, going to run for president.
Now, are you for him for president?
You know something? I'm not really sure. I don't know enough about what his policies are to
outside of local.
He's rich.
Outside of local. I mean, for example, the war in Iraq, you can't pin him down. He's never said specifically, he hasn't said he's for it, he hasn't said he's against it. But he did, now distance himself from the Republican Party. But I got to tell you, if it comes down to a race between Rudy Giuliani and Hillary Clinton, I might have to think about voting for Mike Bloomberg, because I don't trust either one of those two. And Bloomberg seems to be at least straight up about it.
Well, tell us what you do think about Giuliani's presidential run.
I think it would be like electing Dracula for president. I mean, the guy looks like he's been, drinking blood or something. I'm scared of him. I mean, he is a very scary guy. people got this mistaken.
Like a hoodlum.
Well, look
Passing as a cop.
Look at his former police commissioner, Bernie Carrick. You don't hear him talking about how he made a crook police and nominated the guy for Homeland Security director.
I watch the Sunday morning shows, and you watch them, and everybody wanted to support Giuliani because they thought he might be the one to, encapsulate right-wing America, and make
people around the country certainly think of him as a hero.
Right, but then all these stories started coming out in the news that all these big national reporters and the reporters in different parts of the country had no idea. They had this.
What do you mean? Had no idea of what?
Of that, the corruption, his various girlfriends and wives.
Or his local problems.
Yeah, that he told his wife he was about to divorce at a press conference. He didn't even tell her to her face, and his kids ate his guts.
It's done to Hanover.
The thing. There's many things.
And his own kids won't speak to him. They hate his guts. So there's a lot of things that hasn't.
Right.
People want Giuliani because they're afraid. It's the whole thing the Bush administration used. Whip up the fear of terrorism. They want.
Well, they feel that he stood up at a critical time. That is the source of his national popularity.
He had no popularity whatsoever up until 9/11. If 9/11 didn't happen, he would have gone out.
It was
of
a big
office.
political comeback. There's no question about that.
That's very true. But I kind of think he's over his head with the presidential campaign.
So you don't think he'll even get the nomination?
No, I think he probably won't get the nomination. I think that Law and Order guy is going to get it.
Thompson.
The Republicans tend to like movie stars, Fred Thompson.
Fred Thompson.
Now, he was a senator before.
That's right.
You haven't mentioned Barack Obama.
Well, he's going down in the polls now, so...
You think his moment in the sun is over?
I think unless Bloomberg asked him to be his vice president or something.
So what's your emails? Your web pages.
Okay.
Let's get it out.
They can go to MayorMikeForPresident.com or Bloombucks, if you don't like them, for President.com. So I've got pro and con.
Websites, okay.
And I expect to get a lot of comments. We have, we're going to put one specific area about his gun control policies, and all these right-wing rednecks from all over the country are going to go nuts about Bloomberg and gun control, and the NRA is going to donate tons of money to anybody that's against him. But the one thing I really want to like about him is he's not going to have to go into the campaign owing somebody in big corporations a bunch of favors. He don't need to go out there and solicit money from Halliburton or General Dynamics or any of the war machine companies. He's got enough to run on his own.
So you think he doesn't owe people?
He's going to be able to make up his own mind about his policies without owing favors to the rich and powerful.
He can spend a couple of billion out of his own pocket and never miss it.
Well, they've estimated he's ready to spend at least $1 billion on the campaign.
Right.
Out of his own
That's
pocket.
an enormous amount.
It'll be the most expensive campaign in history.
Well,
but then 4 years ago was the most expensive campaign.
Every time is.
And 4 years before that was the most expensive campaign in history.
Well, already a grudge match
is never going down.
Yeah, right.
Giuliani and him are already developing a grudge match. I just hope he runs to make the campaign more interesting.
Well, do you remember at 9/11, after 9/11, that Giuliani wanted to extend his term? Remember that 9/11 was election day in New York, and
like Bush might want to extend his term.
He wasn't allowed to run for a third term, but after 9/11, he suggested that he stay on and that his term be extended.
And that was a turnoff in New York. That was the end of his popularity in New York. That statement that really scared people, and that's the kind of attitude that's now starting to creep out to the rest of the country. That's acting as a sort of brake on his popularity.
Well, also on the Bush administration, because he's already got a presidential directive in there that says if he declares a national emergency, he can take over state, federal, local governments and businesses and everything else. And Dick Cheney just declared that he's not even part of the executive branch. I'm getting a little worried. Right. But
now, did you see when during the Republican debates when lightning struck when they asked Giuliani about his stand on abortion?
That was pretty funny. But anyway, I'd like to encourage anybody listening that if you want to make, we're trying to get some dialogue going, and we're trying to also pin Mayor Bloomberg down on specific issues to find out, does he support the war in Iraq? Would he support medical marijuana legalization? How about health care, housing?
So it's a participatory
It's exactly
website.
right. And we're hoping that his people and he might be able to use our website to try to make up their mind where they stand on certain issues by how people are weighing in on it, pro and con. So
212-757-1538. We got a few minutes to take your calls. If you want to have a question or two or make a comment about what we've been talking about this evening, you're on Let Them Talk.
With John Penley, our
John
guest.
Penley is our guest from the East Village and Lower East Side, as us old-timers still refer to it. East Village is sort of this new yuppie term for the neighborhood.
It's a marketing term.
Yeah, I avoided
there's a $1 million penthouse going up right around the corner from me, on the corner of 2nd Street and Avenue B. And the new hot spot, night spot, Le Souk, is on Avenue B between 3rd and 4th Street. It's a BMWs, Lexuses, and Bentleys now on Saturday nights.
Right,
It's driving me nuts.
Right, and it's pretty, really what really set apart our neighborhood from neighborhoods throughout the city, in a very polarized city where everybody lives in their own little village. Here on the Lower East Side, we have such great diversity. I mean, you could have, a Muslim guys singing on a minaret while Hasidic guys are walking down the street, and there's 6 holy roller churches, and
the squatters
and
punks.
What I was trying to say is the diversity. Every nationality, every race, every sort of background, all living together, and for the most part, setting an example for the rest of the city of people living together, and that's really what's under threat with all this gentrification, which really turns it into this homogenous, rich Ivy League white guys and their wives. And, we're having now this baby boom in the neighborhood where, for the first time ever, I'm seeing nannies like pushing kids in carriages, which you never used to see before, and it's just truly sad. I mean, there's always was room for wealthy people to live in it.
Most people don't think of babies as sad, though, Paul.
It's sad.
Well,
It's usually a happy
the old punk coffee shop, All Cafe, is going to be now a coffee shop for mommies to bring in their babies.
I know,
drink,
it's terrible. I mean,
drink coffee.
The old punk scenes are becoming like places for the mommies all to hang out.
Slowly but surely, they're all going. CBGB's went,
we got a call
Continental went.
You're on. Hello.
Hello.
Hello?
Go ahead.
I wanted to comment on Mayor Bloomberg. While we may not know where he stands on the war per se, we certainly know where he stands about dissent against the war. At least has a record as mayor that he's certainly made it difficult for people to demonstrate.
That's true. Back in 2004, during the convention, he made it pretty clear when they put folks in that pier, which was like a toxic concentration camp over on the Hudson River, and now it was discovered that everything they did was illegal. It was planned, and of course they kept files and had police and other agencies infiltrating and keeping files on people doing peaceful, legally acceptable political activism. And
Yeah, good point, caller.
Well,
Thanks
yeah,
for
somebody,
that.
Do us a favor and post the First Amendment on that Bloomberg website,
Well,
because
we're
he
over.